the 2019 Annual Alabama Renaissance Fair Lecture Series, sponsored, of course, by the Alabama Renaissance Fair, the University of North Alabama History Department, and the Florence Lauderdale Public Library. My name is Lee Freeman. In my day job, my mundane job, as we say, I work in the local history genealogy department upstairs at the library. I'm also on the board of directors for the Alabama Renaissance Fair, along with our chairman, Friar Warren, back there. Raise your hand, Billy. I'm going to embarrass him just a little bit. He doesn't like that, and I'll pay for that later. But some of our other board members are here. Mark Newton is here. My brother is here. Chris and Cherie are here. They are on the Alabama Renaissance Fair group with us. They're going to be filming this for our YouTube channel, which we do have a Renaissance Fair YouTube channel now. So please log on, watch it, like us, tell your friends to like us. Just a few quick announcements. Actually, well, before, let me get these out of the way because I'm liable to forget them. Of course, next week, same time, same station, Dr. Ben Lowe from the University of North Alabama History Department will be doing a really interesting topic called A Most Noble Dwelling, the UNA Domus Romana project, and the topography of Roman and medieval Medina, which is a city on the island of Malta in the Mediterranean. So that will be next week's program, which you won't want to miss. And then our third program, Dr. Carl Franks from the University of North Alabama English Department, who's also with the Roundtable, will be doing a program called The Green Man, Development of a Mythological Archetype. So if you've seen the carvings of the Green Man figure on medieval churches and buildings, he's going to talk about the origins of that legend. Then remember our costume making workshop for the Alabama Renaissance Fair this coming Saturday, around the corner in the Kennedy Douglas Art Center carriage house courtyard. If you need medieval garb to feast with us or make merry with us at the fair, if you bring 3 yards or 54 inches of medieval-esque fabric, our seamstresses and seamsters, if that's the word, will create a basic medieval tunic for you that you can decorate. We'll have the costume books to show you how to accessorize. So that is this coming Saturday. Our Royal Autumn Feast is Saturday, October 19th at Her Majesty's Feast Hall, His Majesty's Feast Hall, aka the Coliseum. Tickets, it's a 3-course medieval banquet with period entertainment. Tickets are $25. If you want them, literally get them while they're hot. So come and feast with us. Then the Renaissance Fair itself is Saturday and Sunday, October 26th and 27th in Fountain on the Green, Wilson Park, from 10 to 6 on Saturday and 12 to 6 on Sunday. So come out and make merry with us at the Renaissance Fair. Admission is free. You only pay for any souvenirs or food that you buy. At this time, I will introduce our speaker, John Givens, who came to the Renaissance Fair, I guess 10 or so years ago. He met Billy Warren at a job fair or something. And Billy Ray could tell that he was a geek like some of the rest of us, and he should hang out with us. So he found his niche with the people on the Renaissance Fair. John is a UNA graduate. He is a former radio disc jockey. He's a former teacher. He's worn lots of different hats. He's a medieval enthusiast. But if you ever play Doctor Who trivia against him, you will lose. He is a walking encyclopedia of all things Doctor Who, and I am not kidding. But as I said, he wears many different hats, and he has become a medieval Renaissance enthusiast, and is becoming quite the expert on Henry V, Agincourt, and the 100 Years' War. So all of the gear, 90% of the gear on the table, belongs to him. So if you'd like to ask him questions about any of it after we are done, feel free to come up, look, and examine one of the arrows, the bodkin. This has a real point on it, so be very careful with this one. Everything else is dull, so it won't hurt you. But without taking any more time, I will introduce John Givens doing his program, Henry V from Shakespeare, from Agincourt to Shakespeare.
Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention. A kingdom for a stage, princes to act, and monarchs to behold the swelling scene. Then should the warlike Harry assume the port of Mars, and at his heels, leashed in like hounds, should famine, sword, and fire crouch for employment. But pardon, gentles all, the unraised spirits that hath dared to bring forth so great an object on this unworthy scatchhold. Can this cockpit hold the vasty fields of France? Or may we cram into this wooden O the very casks that did affright the air at Agincourt? Oh, pardon. Since a crooked figure may attest, and little place a million, let us ciphers to this great account on your imaginary forces' work. For 'tis your thoughts now must deck out our kings. Carry him here and there, jumping over time, turning the accomplishments of many years into an hourglass, for the which supply, admit me chorus to this history, who prologue like, your humble patience pray, gently to hear, kindly to judge our play. That, in a very long-winded way, is how William Shakespeare opened his play Henry V. In simpler terms, he's inviting you to come see this wonderful play about King Henry V and the Battle of Agincourt, while telling you outright that his theater, this great wooden O, this cockpit, isn't quite capable of showing you the grandeur of those events. So he's inviting you to use your imaginations. When he tells you that there are horses coming, you will see the horses coming. When he tells you about the great armies, you will see the great armies stretching over the fields. And you can join with them as the play begins. And so that is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to invite you to use your imagination so you can see some of this with me today. This play, Henry V, is based on events from the 1415 campaign of King Henry V. The play itself was probably finished in 1599. And one thing I happen to like about that closing of the first speech is turning the accomplishment of many years into an hourglass. Because the play covers about a 3-year period in a 2-hour time span. So it gets really fun. Now, as Lee introduced me, my name is John Gibbons. I'm a graduate of the University of North Alabama. I have a background in theater. I have a background in elementary education. I'm not a professional historian. I am an enthusiast. I'll spend time researching through books, or at least asking the right people the right questions, and getting very lucky. What I am, though, is a fairly decent storyteller. So I'm going to tell you a story about King Henry V. And, here we are. That is the reproduction of the Globe Theater, and that is actually the cast of Henry V, performed there in 2014. Now, the events of 1415 actually had their beginnings a lot earlier than that, and began with these two men, Edward III and King Philip VI. Through years of marriage between the English royal house and French nobility, there was this interesting dynamic. Because the kings of France often owned good chunks of France, they were in a position of actually being subservient to the French kings. All right, this kind of worked. Sometimes it didn't. When it comes down to these two men, it all fell apart. Edward III, King of England, taking the throne in 1314, at the tender age of 14. 1328, I apologize. All these dates get mixed up in my head. But he takes the throne in 1327. He's 14 years old. A year later, the King of France dies. Edward's sister was sister to the King of France. Makes him the next in line. No. They pass him over and give it to Philip VI. They don't want an English king on the French throne, and probably Edward didn't want it either. He's got enough to deal with. A few years later, in 1337, King Philip VI goes, you know, these English kings holding on to our territory? Don't think so. So Philip moves against every piece of property that Edward owns in France. Edward's not in a position to do anything about it for at least 3 years. 3 years later, Edward comes along and says, okay, that land's mine, I'm taking it back. By the way, I'm going to take your throne too because I've just put your symbol on my flag. 1346, Edward makes good on his threat to go for his territories and invades France. And he takes with him archers. Keep that in mind because archery is going to come back into play before this is all over. So he goes into France, Battle of Crécy, wins big. 1347, Battle of Calais, wins big. Keep that name Calais in mind too, because that's coming back. 1356, Philip VI is dead. His son John II is in charge. And Edward sends his own son to go fight the new king of France. By the way, his son wins, and they take King John II of France hostage. He gets captured. Now in those days, if you captured someone who was noble, you sold them back to his family. In this case, they were charging $3 million to give the king back. And eventually they did pay some of it. It was never fully paid back, and again, that's going to come back into play later. So 1356, they effectively taken the French king. 1360, they give the king back in exchange for $1 million. 1 million écus, I think is the word. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And they agree that Edward will no longer claim the French crown if they restore all the lands that Philip VI took in the first place. Everybody's agreed, everybody's happy, it leaves for a while. Over the years, France kind of went, we kind of want that land back, so they started whittling away at all the English territory again. And we're left with basically not much. Problem is, Edward III dies in 1377. His grandson, Richard II, has very little interest in trying to take all that back. He's only 10 when he gets the throne himself. 1396, he's making a treaty with the French in exchange for, you give me some of the land back, I marry your daughter, we get some money exchange, everybody's happy. Might have worked if Richard II hadn't been deposed in 1399 by his cousin who became known as Henry IV. Again, these names all kind of come back together to haunt us in the end. This is the digest version. And there are all my notes on this. So, the treaty failed. They never paid up. Edward dies in 1377. And the new treaty never quite works out. A few other things don't work out too well either. In 1380, King Charles V of France dies, leaving his son, Charles VI, who, by the way, loses his mind in 1392. There were periods when this man would believe his body was made out of glass and had special clothes made to keep him from falling apart. Yeah, where the English would have looked at this and gone, we need to get him off the throne quick. The French went, no, he's our king, we're kind of stuck with him until he dies. The English had no problem deposing an unstable king. The French, yeah. So, we get on through Henry IV, takes the throne from Richard II. He has a lot of problems, mainly because he did usurp the throne. It wasn't his, it belonged to Richard. In fact, Richard's successor was named, but Henry IV is there. The successor is preteen living in Ireland. So, who do the English nobles go with? Kid with no support, or adult who has an army, they go with Henry. But he has to deal with people after the throne because they don't believe he belongs there. So he's got too many political problems at home to be too worried about France. In 1411, there is a French Civil War going on because you've got some of the king's cousins who feel, you know, Charles VI is kind of gaga right now. We should be in charge. So you've got a group loyal to the Duke of Orleans, who are trying to control the king. And you've got the Duke of Burgundy, who is trying to control the king. And again, these are names that are going to come back into play during this campaign. 1413, Henry IV dies. We don't know what he died of. I've read speculation. They thought he had leprosy. There's really, at this point, no way of knowing. Although I remember hearing a story where they did study a life mask of, no, that was Edward III. Did a life mask and found, oh, he had a stroke. So there's that king. Henry IV, leprosy, we don't know. It really is kind of lost to us. In any event, Henry V takes the throne, formerly Henry of Monmouth, and we'll go into more of his background later. But he takes the throne. He's 25, which actually puts him a little older than some of the members of the royal family who took the throne when they were still in their teens. But he is, at this point, a trained soldier, and we'll go more into that a little further down the line. He's also a little insecure on the throne. Comes back to being the son of a usurper, so really, he's not too certain about his support. And he really needs something to get people backing him. Not against him, but people who are going to back him. Get the good patriotic fervor going on. We have this king, we need to back him up in his endeavors. How do you do this? You have a war. In this case, you reopen their claim against France that France owns our property, and we should actually have that throne too, because it really should have gone to Edward III. So Henry's got this great idea. This is how I'll hold the war. Now he does go to his post to Parliament, and this is an excerpt from the speech given by Henry Beaufort, Bishop of Winchester, who is more or less stating the case that it is a just thing for us to go to war with France to take back what belongs to us and to give our king his rightful place on the French throne. All right, we're all for this. But let's try negotiating with them first. You know, this is a big expense. We're going to have to spend all this money on weapons. They're trying to get out of it. But they do agree to try to negotiate with the French. I'll back that up. They arrange to raise money for war. Now they know they're not going to raise everything they need in advance, so they agree to, well, we will take out loans. We will pawn some of the royal jewelry. We'll find a way of financing this. But please try to negotiate. So they try to negotiate. And the negotiation goes on like this. All right, you still owe us for giving your king back in 1360. You owed us $3 million then. We'll sell for 1.6 now. Oh, by the way, you have a daughter. Yes, she's 12. But in a few years she'll be of age. We'll marry her, and you give us a dowry of $2 million to go with it. And then you give us back all the lands that we won during the last round of warfare, and we'll call it quits. Sounds like a good plan. The French go, well, the real estate is at a premium, so we'll give you this. It's kind of yours anyway. It comes from down the line, so we'll give you that. And as for the daughter, well, yeah, you can marry her when she's of age, but the dowries can go from $2 million to $600,000. How's that? Doesn't go over well. And in the end, they have different rounds of talks. English go to France, French come to English, and on one occasion, Henry goes, "This is mine by rights, you will give this to me, give me my throne, give me these lands back." And the French ambassador says, "You don't even have rights to the English throne, what are you talking about?" Okay. Doesn't go over very well. In Shakespeare, they took all of those rounds of negotiations, as well as his motives for going to war, and kind of encapsulated into, it's yours, we can take it, and in exchange for the French to give you what you want. Well, they've got something else in mind, and the French ambassador brings Henry a crate of tennis balls to pay him off. Now, either case, that would have been pretty insulting. The French wouldn't have done that. They didn't want to go to war. That would have just egged it on. But that's what Shakespeare does with it. In the end, though, here it goes. We are going to war.